It's the future. A 1, 2, y'all. It's the future. A 1, 2, it's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. It's the future. A 1, 2, y'all. It's the future. A 1, 2, it's the future. There ain't no future unless.
Yes, yes, yes. Greetings, greetings, African people. This is Brother Melvin.
And Pan African Revolutionary greetings once again from Brother Terrence here.
This is Africa Must Unite podcast, and we are the Pan African Revolutionary Socialist Party. Right off the bat, we would like to thank you all for joining us for this, our 45th podcast. And
yes,
yep. So, for our podcast this year, we've been looking at for a theme. Heed the words of the warriors, guided messages to uplift African people. And this month specifically, we are going to be looking at our African women and the struggle worldwide. But before we jump into that, like we always do at this time, we would like to go ahead and give you some of our significant dates in the month of September for African people to remember and to make note of. So if you don't mind, Brother Terrence, why don't we go through the calendar for the month?
All right, starting with September 1st, couple of things here. In 1961, armed struggle began in Eritrea. Also on September 1st, Muammar el-Gaddafi of Libya leads a successful coup in 1969. On September 2nd, Ho Chi Minh, revolutionary leader of the Vietnamese struggle, transitioned in 1969 on September 2nd. On September 3rd, African Marxist Samir Amin was born in 1931. On September 4th, the author Richard Wright, born in Mississippi in 1908. On September 6th, another historian here, J.A. Rogers, born in 1883 on September 6th. On September 9th, we have Mao Zedong, revolutionary founder of the Chinese Communist Party. He passed away in 1976 on September 9th. On September 12th, one of our Pan-African giants here, Amilcar Cabral, was born in 1924. On September 13th, capitalist Governor Rockefeller of New York had ordered the troops to fire on inmates at the Attica prison, killing 32 people in 1971. On September 15th, a couple of things here. Lamine Mamadou Janga, I hope I pronounced that right, a young pioneer and member of the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, was born on this day in 1945. Also, racists had bombed the church in Birmingham, Alabama, killing the four little African girls in 1963. And on September 18th, the foremost exponent of Pan-Africanism, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, first president of Ghana, was born in 1909 on September 18th. On September 19th in 1956, Guinea-Bissau, PAIGC, the PAIGC, was founded under the leadership of Amilcar Cabral. On September 23rd, the great John Coltrane was born in 1926. Also on September 23rd, we have the African children, better known as the Little Rock Nine, who had desegregated the Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. On September 24th, Guinea-Bissau Independence Day in 1973. And today, September 25th, we know Eric Williams, the African historian born in Trinidad in 1911. Also, armed struggle began in Mozambique in 1964. On September 26th, the great Winnie Mandela, South African freedom fighter, was born in 1936. On September 28th, another freedom fighter was born. That was David Walker, the author of The Appeal, in 1796. And on September 30th, Botswana becomes an independent country in 1966.
Awesome, man. I think it's safe to say that September is a revolutionary month in terms of all the great African warriors that were born and those who had transitioned into ancestorhood in the month of September. We have some big names from Nkrumah to even Steve Biko in South Africa, George Jackson, all these great Pan-African revolutionary freedom fighters in the month of September that we certainly want to celebrate. So September's a big month. And we'll talk about Winnie Mandela a little later too. So that was awesome to mention her as well. But like we said earlier, for our theme for our podcast has been Heed the Words of the Warriors, guided messages to uplift African people. And this month we want to recognize the impact and role of African women in the struggle for Pan-Africanism and for liberation for African people worldwide. So we want to highlight women. And our calendar this month celebrates two of those historians, T, that we like to talk about and express the impact that they've made on our revolutionary struggle. So we're going to look at Amy Jacques Garvey, and then we're going to look at Thomas Sankara. So if you want to start with a quote from Amy Jacques, that'll be great.
Yeah, this is a powerful quote right here. So Amy Jacques Garvey said, quote, "Africa must be for the Africans, and Negroes everywhere must be independent. God being our guide. Mr. Black Man, watch your step. Ethiopia's queens will reign again, and her Amazons protect her shores and people. Strengthen your shaky knees and move forward, or we will displace you and lead on to victory and to glory." End quote. For those who may not know, Amy Jacques Garvey was Marcus Garvey's second wife, and together she and Marcus Garvey helped lead the UNIA, better known as the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. She edited and published volumes 1 and 2 of the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey. She also wrote Garvey and Garveyism. So a lot of the words and that we know of Garvey was possible through the writings and publishers of Amy Jacques Garvey.
Awesome. So our second quote comes from Brother Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso, and he writes, quote, "In every male sleeps the soul of a feudal lord, a male chauvinist, which must be destroyed." End quote. Short message, but incredibly powerful and incredibly appropriate for where we are today, and hopefully we can highlight some of those points during this podcast. But for those who are unfamiliar with Brother Thomas Sankara, who was born in 1949 in Burkina Faso, he was a leader of Burkina Faso's popular revolutionary government from 1983 to 1987 when he was assassinated. Under his leadership, the government mobilized peasants, workers, craftsmen, women, and youth to carry out literacy and immunization drives, to sink wells, plant trees, build dams, erect housing, to combat the oppression of women, and to transform exploitative relationships, and most importantly, to free themselves from imperialism. Speaking at the UN General Assembly in 1984, he stated, quote, "I come here from a country whose 7 million children, women, and men refuse to die from ignorance, hunger, and thirst any longer. My aspiration is to speak on behalf of my people, on behalf of the disinherited of the world." End quote. Again, that's Brother Thomas Sankara. So those quotes are super powerful, and then, certainly speaks, to the point that we need to address. And I think we'll get into that a little bit, Terrence, but I just wanted to start out, when we talk about women, and we talk about oppression, I think one thing is clear for us is that the African woman is the most oppressed person on planet Earth. The African woman experiences triple oppression as a worker, as an African, and as a female. So we talk about race, class, and gender. And she's exploited through the system that we understand as capitalism in all of its form that gives birth to this triple oppression. And just to kind of highlight some of the pieces in terms of the struggle that the African woman experiences as a worker, as an African, and as a female, I just want to go over some statistics and some information that I'm pretty sure many of you already know, but I think it's appropriate to highlight at this point. In many cases, the African female is the head of she's the single head of a household, which means she's responsible for providing those physiological needs, the food, clothing, and shelter, right? Which we all understand. You need money to do that. In other words, in order to raise a healthy family, right, you need to be gainfully employed. You need to be able to provide those basic needs and that kind of thing, right? But here's some startling statistic that the African female have to overcome in order to even get to that point. First of all, the African female is 3 to 4 times more likely to die in a preventable pregnancy, right? So preventable pregnancy related complications. She's 3 to 4 times more likely to die giving birth to the African child than her white or Hispanic counterparts. She's 2 times more likely. The African child is 2 times more likely to die before their first birthday, right? In terms of incarceration, the African female is 3 times more likely to be incarcerated than her white counterparts. 2% of all STEM jobs, that's science, technology, engineering, math jobs, 2% of those jobs are held by African women, whereas European women are holding 24% of those jobs in STEM. And that's despite the fact that in terms of those degrees that are coming out of STEM, African women are surpassing the African male in earning STEM degrees, yet that's not reflected in the workplace. The African male still finds himself in more job opportunities than the sisters do. Black women are disproportionately experienced. Here's the violence part. Black women, or African women, disproportionately experience violence at home, at school, on the jobs, in their communities, right? She is 4 out of 10 African women experience physical violence from an intimate partner. She's significantly experiencing higher rates of psychological abuse, which means humiliation, name calling, and coercive control. That's within the household. 1 in 5 Black women are raped during their lifetime. So I think that needs to sit with us for a second, to just think like 20% of all African women are raped at some point during their lives. Black women are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by men than their white counterparts. Super startling statistics. And going back to, the workplace, she's only earning 64 cents to the dollar, whereas the African male is earning 68, and their white female is earning 78 cents to the dollar. So we see the disproportionality, the inequity in every facet of the relationship that the African woman is having at this time. So those are some of the startling statistics that the African woman experienced triple oppression as an African woman, as an African worker, and certainly as an African female. So we talk about that external enemy being capitalism, that our enemy is capitalism. And Terrence, I know you was going to talk about that other internal piece, right?
You're right. Just soaking in those statistics that you share right now. I mean, it's no wonder we haven't went under when you think of what the African woman faced through the external enemy of capitalism and all of its manifestations. But however, not only are they enduring through the system of capitalism and that external enemy, we have to look at ourselves here. We got to look at that eternal enemy. That role that we African males, be it conscious or unconscious or subconscious, the role we play in that oppression. So let me just say this real quick. I just want to say, however, a major actor in this African woman's oppression is the African male who has been socialized by this capitalist economic system to believe that he is superior to his mother, wife, sister, and or daughter. African males must become more conscious of the backwardsness of their ways. We must reject the capitalist lifestyle and choose a life-giving socialist principles of humanism, collectivism, and egalitarianism. And we politically conscious brothers here have an important role to play. We must wage a constant struggle against gender oppression wherever we see its ugly head reared, in our relations, in our marriages, in the workplace. We also have to look at these backward habits and obsolete traditions. In the book Kwame Nkrumah and Nkrumahism, written by Dr. Dorothea Drummond Mbalia, on page 19, she says here, polygamy, female circumcision, and bride price are still realities for some females in Africa. And despite their full employment, far too many African women worldwide are oppressed. Far too many have subordinate roles in relationships, in the household, in society, and in our quest for Pan-Africanism. Backward habits and obsolete traditions are retrograde practices, fuel for the continuation of neocolonialism and any other form of capitalism. If ridding ourselves of these habits and traditions that no longer or never did facilitate the health and welfare of all African people, hasten our quest for a liberated, unified, socialist Africa, then we must destroy them and help free ourselves. And in that freeing of ourselves, we have to look at those principles that we must demonstrate. Whether you're revolutionary or not, we have to begin to practice the habits that we want to see displayed in our people in a socialist society. And those principles are humanism, once again, treating people the way we would like to be treated, that love, that respect, showing the integrity, the honor, collectivism, again, working together in a cooperative manner to achieve a goal, and definitely important, egalitarianism, and that's giving everyone an equal opportunity to realize their potential, regardless of their ability, disabled or not, regardless of their race, color, and more importantly, regardless of their gender. So we want to, we definitely have to start putting in place these actions to show our people a better way and to uplift our African women.
Nah, that's definitely a fact, Terrence. When I think about, just with some of the information that we just shared, and if we kind of just think that we know, only because we've been in organization, that's just to highlight the importance of organization and the way in which we engage in political education through organization, that we learn about our enemy, both, our external enemy and then the internal enemy, the pieces that we need to address. And it's important that, within organization, we are, not only learning these principles, but are practicing that these principles guide our behaviors, are guiding everything that we do. So we can be that shining example for those other, our people to, come into organization and understand that we can work collectively to realize our objective of Pan-Africanism. So that's important in and of itself. But I was also thinking, Brother Terrence, as we was talking about this, throughout our history, throughout our liberation struggle, the role of African women has always been highlighted. There's nothing that we've ever been able to accomplish in the absence of the African woman, right? So just from a historical standpoint, if we're looking back during the colonial period, right, we go back at home in Africa. So sometimes you'll hear on the podcast, when we say home, we talk about Africa, right? Because for us, land is primary and Africa is our homeland. We understand no matter where you're born throughout this globe, if you are Black, you are African, and you owe your allegiance to that land base, Africa. And so towards the liberation of that land base, Africa, for us. So I just say that to say we talk about home, the role of African women at home on the continent during colonial period. It was Queen Nzinga who was fighting against the colonial rule of the Portuguese, right? Ya Asantewaa, who was a military commander against the British and her protection of the Golden Stool and those pieces in the Gold Coast, right? Formerly the Gold Coast, what we know as Ghana, right? It was Nanny, Sister Nanny, helping to organize the Maroon Society in Jamaica, fighting against slavery at that time. In colonial times, in 20th century, we had women-led organizations in West Africa, in Nigeria, Cameroon, Togo, Sierra Leone. Even when you go over west in Kenya, and in terms of the Mau Mau and the role that African women played in organizing over there, women like Constance Cummings and Fomaleo, Ransom Kuti, who organized the anti-colonial Pan-African movements in Nigeria, West African student unions, the Nigerian Women's Society, I think it's called, yeah, exactly. Going south, Winnie Mandela in South Africa and her struggle against apartheid. Tina Cilia in Guinea-Bissau, who served as a soldier in the War of Independence against the Portuguese, who was a martyr, dying alongside Amilcar Cabral. I believe they died at separate times, but she was known as a martyr in that revolutionary struggle. She took arms against the Portuguese. Amy Jacques, we already talked about how instrumental Amy Jacques was in terms of her role in the UNI, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, as the editor of the Negro World. And she was a columnist in the Negro World, a column called Our Women and What They Think, always highlighting the role of women, right? Here in the U.S., talk about Harriet Tubman. We don't need to say much about her, what she did, and the incredible role she played in terms of trying to liberate the enslaved Africans during that period. Sojourner Truth, who also escaped slavery, became an abolitionist and was a stout women rights advocate. Ida B. Wells, anti-lynching crusader, and the believer. She was one of the foremost individuals who believed in self-defense. So it was her philosophy and opinion that predated Malcolm X's self-defense stance. She predated Kwame Ture. She predated Huey P. Newton, right? So Ida B. Wells, anti-lynch crusade, who always talked about her rifle, right? Fannie Lou Hamer in Mississippi. So
she go take one of them with her.
That's right. We've always had these shining examples of women who were instrumental in organizing, fermenting, developing, mobilizing African people in general in liberation struggle. So I think is of vast importance that we also address that piece that we're dealing with, in contemporary times, right? From a historical standpoint, we realize that we haven't accomplished anything in the absence of her. So how dare we stand in any position to attempt to oppress our leader, right? I'll call our leader, right? Because we've learned so much from our mother, who is our first teacher, and so it is our duty, is our historical role to not only uplift, to recognize, to support, but to also dismantle the system that seeks to oppress her. If it oppresses her, that means it oppresses all of us.
Right, and that's why it's not even a question if Pan-Africanism is achievable without the woman. That is, it's not impossible. It's not impossible for anything to occur to free us, to liberate us as an African people without the role of our African women. History, you just gave a historical account of the role our sisters play. So we're going to continue to need that role. We're going to continue to need to be together, to be organized in order to defeat this enemy of capitalism. So again, we know that that enemy, that primary enemy, is capitalism and all of its manifestations. Well, I think we made it clear that it gives birth to gender oppression of our sisters. We know that its total destruction is the solution to this oppression. And until this day of its destruction, we must show our people by our practice the society that we are working to bring into existence, a radically different society. Because only by doing so, we will begin to build an army that will be strong and powerful enough to destroy its enemy. Today, the most essential revolutionary Pan-African socialist organizations can play a moving role toward the African Revolution. And in doing that, you must practice these principles of humanism, collectivism, and egalitarianism. And also, if by our principles we can demonstrate a socialist world that we are working toward bringing into existence, in regards to our sisters, our people, we will win. We will achieve Pan-Africanism, which again is a united socialist Africa. What's that challenge you want to give our listeners out there, Brother Mel?
Yeah, for our listeners, we we have to work to struggle to think only egalitarian thoughts, to say only egalitarian words, to do only egalitarian deeds. And just to kind of reiterate your point, that's something that we have to struggle, even those of us who are in the Pan-African revolutionary struggle, because, we are also victims of this capitalist system, and we live under this capitalist reality, and we are constantly bombarded by these capitalist messages, right? And just like Audre Lorde mentioned before, you can't live in a brothel or a whorehouse and not turn a trick. So we fall victim to these pieces as well, but it's only through revolutionary struggle and being in the organization are we able to, one, hold each other accountable for following our principles, right, of being egalitarian, so that we can fight against patriarchy and those ideas that come out of this sort of male dominance that capitalism sort of gives birth to. So we struggle with that as well. So we certainly not standing on our stoop pointing our finger at all these other backwards brothers, because we find ourselves in those positions from time to time, and we have to be reminded, regularly, to follow those principles of humanism, collectivism, and egalitarianism. So we ask you all as a challenge to join us in practicing those principles, and to help us struggle to defeat this enemy of capitalism and to bring about the achievement of Pan-Africanism. I know we said so much in this small time. And if you're interested in learning more, we do have some political education that you can check for. There's a book from Brother Thomas Sankara entitled "Women's Liberation and the African Freedom Struggle." Sister Evelyn Reed writes "Women's Evolution from Matriarchal Clan to Patriarchal Family," and then Sekou Touré book titled "Women in Society." And that's a nice jump off point for you to begin your own study and research. But first, I think we'll get into this piece in terms of our call for being involved in a Pan-African revolutionary struggle in terms of or being in an organization, which we understand is the only way that we can achieve this goal. We can't do it on our own. We have to work within the organization. The organization has to build a coalition of like-minded Pan-African revolutionary socialist groups together to fight collectively to bring this into existence.
Word.
Yeah.
So, yes, I just want to say it in subsequent months, at times with the help of invited guests, we will discuss various revolutionary messages from our warriors guided to uplift African people.
Yeah, so join us next month. We'll all highlight messages from Mary McLeod Bethune and Brother Amilcar Cabral around the topic of youth.
Meanwhile, visit our website. That's the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, all one word, .org. Email us at panafricanrsp@gmail.com. You can like us on SoundCloud, visit us on YouTube, and leave comments on our Facebook page, where you can search Pan-African Socialists and we'll pop up there.
And remember, organization is the key. join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization. A union of African socialist states is on the horizon.
We all need to pray. Can't believe what is happening. These must be the last days. Times are getting scary. The devil's in a rage. Women and children are a target now. We need to see a change. We're losing too many women. Stop the violence against women. We need to love our women and take care of the women. Stop abusing the women. We're losing too many women, yeah. Stop the violence against women. We need to love our women, take care of the women, stop abusing the women. Young girls beware, there are predators out there, don't trust people. They act as if they care, they are wolves in sheep clothing, they are evil. So don't just stop on any taxi, and don't just stop on any bus. Don't just trust loose faces, no. Suss them out first. And don't make life get you too far from home. Don't get your loved ones nervous. Just think before you act now, pretty. Time is so evilous. Now to my big woman friend them, stop steer with the madman them. If every day my beat you and I'll treat you, one day your life in a problem. Girl, no make true money, you stay and fight because it better you leave if you not treat you right. But don't disrespect and stay out at night. But well at these days you will lose your life. We're losing too many women. Stop the violence against women. We need to love our women and take care of the women. Stop abusing the women. We're losing too many women, yeah. Stop the violence against women. We need to love our women, take care of the women. Stop abusing the women. Me never seen nothing but heard me so. If you want find God, them say a church you go. But the one what for lead them, what for teach you. Can't believe saying 37, 63 minus 15. No, the 48 that them say we not for church. But if I had to say that pastor would get 48. Hey, and then the criminal them went upon the taxi route, kidnap the little girls and thief them forbidden fruits. Me have a bag of stone, no me no one shoot. Me wanna feel a lot of pain absolute. We're losing too many women. Stop the violence against women. We need to love our women and take care of the women. Stop abusing the women. We're losing too many women, yeah. Stop the violence against women. Stop it, stop. We need to love our women, take care of the women, stop abusing the women. I can't live without a woman. Tell me, can you hear me? So I would never hurt a woman. No. We're losing too many women. Stop the violence against women. We need to love our women and take care of the women. Stop abusing the women. We're losing too many women, yeah. Stop the violence against women. We need to love our women, take care of the women. Stop abusing the women. Stop the violence against women.